On a Friday afternoon in November 2023, the board of the most important company in the world fired its own chief executive, over a video call that lasted just a few minutes. His name was Sam Altman. And within 72 hours, almost every single employee at OpenAI, more than 700 of them, threatened to walk out the door unless he was brought back. Microsoft was blindsided. Silicon Valley froze. And the company that had just convinced the entire planet that artificial intelligence was finally real, looked like it was about to destroy itself overnight. But here is the strange part. The people who fired Sam Altman were not his enemies. They were his own co-founders. The scientist who helped build the whole thing voted to remove him, and then, days later, publicly said he regretted it. This is the story of how a tiny nonprofit, started by a handful of idealists who were genuinely terrified of the future, became an $800 billion empire that now touches nearly 1 billion people every week. It is a story about a promise. A promise to build a technology that would benefit all of humanity, and never be controlled by any single person. And it is a story about what happened when that promise collided with the most valuable product ever created. Because to understand those 5 days in November, you have to go back almost a decade, to a private dinner in Silicon Valley, where two of the richest men alive made a pact to stop what they believed could end the world. One of them was Sam Altman. The other was Elon Musk. And by the end of this story, these two men will be dragging each other into a courtroom. So stay with me. Because the moment you understand what OpenAI was actually built to do, everything about the last 3 years starts to look very different. This is not just the story of a chatbot. This is the story of how one company quietly took over the world, and what it had to betray to get there. To understand the fear, you have to understand what these men were afraid of. In the early 2010s, a small British lab called DeepMind was doing things with artificial intelligence that stunned the entire industry. Then Google bought it. And to a certain group of Silicon Valley insiders, that was a nightmare scenario. Because if artificial intelligence really was the most powerful technology in human history, then the idea that a single corporation, answerable only to its shareholders, might control it, felt genuinely dangerous. Elon Musk said it out loud. He called artificial intelligence humanity's biggest existential threat. He compared it to summoning a demon. And in 2015, over a series of dinners, Musk and Sam Altman, the young president of the famous startup incubator Y Combinator, decided to do something about it. Their answer was almost paradoxical. To protect the world from dangerous artificial intelligence, they would build a lab to create it first, but do it safely, in the open, and for everyone. In December of 2015, they announced OpenAI. Not a company. A non-profit. Its founding mission was written in plain language, to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. The word open was right there in the name. They pledged $1 billion. Musk put in money. Altman put in money. So did Peter Thiel, Reid Hoffman, and Amazon. And they recruited a dream team of researchers, the most important of them a quiet, intense scientist named Ilya Sutskever, poached directly from Google. Ilya believed, almost spiritually, that building safe superintelligence was the most important task in the world. Remember that name. Remember that belief. Because 8 years later, it will be Ilya Sutskever who makes the phone call that nearly ends everything. In the beginning, there were no products. No revenue. No customers. Just a group of brilliant, idealistic people, $1 billion, and a mission that sounded almost like a religion. They were going to build a god, carefully. What could possibly go wrong? But a religion does not pay for supercomputers. And very quickly, OpenAI ran into a brutal reality. Building cutting-edge artificial intelligence is astronomically expensive. It needs thousands of specialized chips, enormous data centers, and the most sought-after researchers on Earth, people that Google and Facebook were paying millions of dollars to keep. A non-profit simply could not compete. Then came the first crack. In 2018, Elon Musk made a move. He proposed taking direct control of OpenAI, folding it into Tesla, or running it himself. The other founders refused. They did not want to trade one powerful corporation for one powerful man. So Musk walked away. He resigned from the board, and he took his money with him. Overnight, the funding that OpenAI had been counting on evaporated. This was the moment that quietly changed everything. Because the man left holding the company was Sam Altman, and Altman is, above all else, a fundraiser. He is one of the most connected operators in the history of Silicon Valley. And he made a decision that would define the next decade. If a pure nonprofit could not survive, he would build a new kind of structure, a capped profit company, sitting underneath the nonprofit's control. Investors could make money, but only up to a limit. The mission, in theory, still came first. And then Altman found his partner. In 2019, Microsoft invested $1 billion into OpenAI, and later, $10 billion more. In exchange, OpenAI would run on Microsoft's cloud, and Microsoft would get a front-row seat to the future. Critics warned this was the beginning of the end of the open in OpenAI. But behind closed doors, something extraordinary was taking shape. The researchers had discovered that if you made these AI systems bigger, much, much bigger, they got shockingly smarter. They called it scaling. And they built a series of increasingly powerful models with a boring name, GPT. The world barely noticed. That was about to change, in a single afternoon. On November 30, 2022, OpenAI released a simple little research demo. It was a website where you could type a question, and an AI would answer you, in fluent, confident, human-sounding language. They almost did not launch it. Internally, some thought it was not even ready. They called it ChatGPT. What happened next has no real precedent in the history of technology. In 5 days, it hit 1 million users. In 2 months, it reached 100 million, making it the fastest-growing consumer application ever created. Your parents heard about it. Your teachers panicked about it. Governments held emergency meetings about it. For the first time, ordinary people could feel artificial intelligence in their own hands, and it felt like magic, and a little like a threat. Overnight, Sam Altman went from a respected insider to one of the most famous people on the planet. And OpenAI went from an idealistic research lab, to the hottest company in the world. Money poured in. The valuation exploded, from a few $1 billion, to $29 billion, and climbing fast. Every giant on Earth scrambled to catch up. Google declared an internal emergency. A global arms race in artificial intelligence had officially begun, and OpenAI was in the lead. But here is what almost nobody saw at the time. Deep inside the company, that success was creating a fault line. Because OpenAI now had 2 identities living in one body. On one side, a rocket ship of a business, moving at breakneck speed, shipping products, chasing revenue, worth more every single week. On the other side, a non-profit board, whose entire legal purpose was not to make money, but to make sure this technology did not hurt anyone. For years, those 2 identities had coexisted. But now, with billions of dollars and the future of humanity supposedly on the line, they were starting to pull in opposite directions. And at the center of that tension stood one man, holding both roles at once. Sam Altman was the face of the rocket ship. And the board was about to decide he could no longer be trusted to steer it. To understand why the board turned on Sam Altman, you need to understand the machine they had built, and a small, strange detail that almost everyone had forgotten. When OpenAI created its for-profit arm, it kept an unusual rule: the non-profit board still sat on top, with the legal power to fire the chief executive. Their loyalty, by design, was not to investors. It was not even to the employees. It was to the mission, to humanity itself. On paper, it was a safeguard. A brake pedal, in case the technology ever started moving too fast for anyone's good. And by 2023, a growing number of people inside OpenAI believed that brake was needed. Chief among them, Ilya Sutskever, the chief scientist, the same man who had helped build it all. Ilya was becoming quietly alarmed. The models were getting more powerful faster than anyone expected, and he worried the company was racing to release them before anyone truly understood the risks. He was so serious about it that he co-founded a whole new team dedicated to controlling a future superintelligence, a problem he believed could threaten the survival of the human race. This was not science fiction to these people. It was the entire reason the company existed. But the business was moving in the other direction. Altman was doing deals, launching products, raising money at a staggering pace, and expanding OpenAI into a commercial powerhouse. To the safety-minded faction, it felt like the brakes were being ignored. And there was something else. Some board members began to feel that they could not get straight answers from their own chief executive. That information was being withheld. That the man in charge was telling different people different things, and quietly working to remove the very board members who might question him. Slowly, a terrifying thought took shape among the people whose only job was to protect the world from this technology. What if the person we cannot control is not the machine? What if it is the man building it? The breaking point came from an unlikely place, an academic paper. One of the board members, a researcher named Helen Toner, co-wrote a report that gently criticized OpenAI's approach to safety, and quietly praised a rival. Altman was furious. According to Toner, he began working to push her off the board over it. To her, this was the pattern laid bare: when the board tried to do its job, the chief executive tried to remove the board. Behind the scenes, the members started comparing notes. And what they found alarmed them. Later, Toner would describe it bluntly. She said Altman had been withholding information, misrepresenting things happening inside the company, and in some cases, in her words, outright lying to the board. She said he had given them inaccurate information about the safety processes that were supposedly in place. Whether every claim was fair is still fiercely debated to this day. Altman's allies insist he did nothing wrong, and that the board panicked and botched the entire thing. But in the fall of 2023, 4 of the 6 board members reached a stunning conclusion. They no longer believed they could trust the man running the most important AI company on Earth. And they believed their duty, their entire reason for existing, was to act. The hardest part was Ilya. Removing Altman would mean the chief scientist turning on the chief executive, a partner, a co-founder, the public face of everything they had built. But Ilya had come to believe that Altman was not the right person to be trusted with building artificial general intelligence. So they made a plan. They would move fast, and they would move in secret, to make sure Altman could not do what he did best: pick up the phone, call his powerful friends, and rally the entire industry to his side. They scheduled it for a Friday. They told almost no one. And on November 17, 2023, they pulled the trigger, on the most chaotic 5 days in the history of Silicon Valley. Friday, November 17. Just after noon, Sam Altman joins a video call. In minutes, the board tells him he is fired. The public statement is brutal. It says Altman was not consistently candid with the board, corporate language that sounds a lot like calling someone a liar. Microsoft, which had poured over $10 billion into the company, is given about 1 minute of warning. The world finds out through a blog post. Within hours, the company begins to implode. Greg Brockman, the president and co-founder, quits in protest. 3 senior researchers walk out. The interim chief executive is Mira Murati. But the employees are not confused, they are furious. They do not see a safety intervention. They see a coup. Then comes the counterattack, and it is masterful. Over the weekend, Sam Altman does exactly what the board feared. He rallies his allies. And on Sunday night, Microsoft's chief executive, Satya Nadella, makes a jaw-dropping announcement. Microsoft has hired Altman and Brockman to lead a brand new AI lab, inside Microsoft. In one move, the board's decision is turned into a weapon against them. Because now OpenAI's own employees have a choice: stay at a company gutted of its leader, or follow Altman to Microsoft. And on Monday, they answer. More than 700 of OpenAI's roughly 770 employees sign an open letter. It threatens that they will all resign and join Microsoft unless the board steps down and reinstates Altman. And then the most shocking signature of all appears on that letter: Ilya Sutskever. The man who helped fire Sam Altman publicly posts that he deeply regrets his participation, and that he will do everything he can to reunite the company. The rebellion the board tried to prevent has become total. They are alone. And by Tuesday, November 21st, it is over. Sam Altman is reinstated as chief executive. A new board is installed: Brett Taylor, Larry Summers, Adam D'Angelo. And the people who tried to stop him, Helen Toner, Tasha McCauley, and Ilya Sutskever, are gone. In 5 days, the safeguard had been tested against the most powerful force in the company. And the safeguard lost. So who really won? On the surface, Sam Altman won everything. He returned more powerful than ever, with a board far friendlier to his vision, and the last real check on his power effectively removed. But the deeper story is what the victory cost. Within months, the safety faction bled out. Ilya Sutskever left to start his own lab, focused on building superintelligence safely, the very thing he feared OpenAI was rushing. The team he had built to control future AI was quietly dissolved. And the man who once said the mission was almost a religion walked away from the church he helped found. Then the ghost of the beginning returned. In 2024, Elon Musk sued OpenAI and Sam Altman, accusing them of betraying the founding mission, of taking a non-profit built to help humanity and turning it into a closed, for-profit machine for Microsoft. He accused them, essentially, of stealing a charity. The case dragged on for 2 years. And in May of 2026, a jury rejected Musk's claims. The pact made over those Silicon Valley dinners had ended in a courtroom, with a verdict, and 2 former friends who will likely never speak again. And OpenAI? OpenAI became an empire. Today it is used by more than 900 million people every week. It generates around $25 billion a year. And as of 2026, it filed to go public at a valuation approaching $1 trillion, one of the most valuable companies ever created by human beings. The tiny nonprofit that was built to make sure no single company would ever control artificial intelligence, had become the single company that dominates it. So here is the question I want you to sit with. OpenAI set out to save humanity from dangerous, unchecked artificial intelligence. To get there, it removed nearly every check on its own power. Did the mission survive the empire? Or did the empire quietly replace the mission? Tell me what you think in the comments, I read them. If this story pulled you in, subscribe, because there is always another empire rising, and another one about to fall. I will see you in the next one.